Okay, we don't have to get out of the wagon here for this stop, but what you're experiencing right here is a regeneration project dealing with walnut. And it's kind of exciting when you really look at your forest. And what I see when I look at a forest, there are some things that are just different, and for some reason they aren't the same as all the forests around. And that was the case here. What we're looking at, if you look at the hillside, the forest on the hillside, almost all of those light green trees are black walnuts. It's unusual in this area that there would be black walnuts like that. Well, why? You have to know why. So we have two things that are kind of interesting. Most of the soil around here, the bedrock, is acidic, and in this particular spot we have limestone that has broken up, and in addition to that broken up layers of limestone, which is highly unusual here, we have all of the moisture that is moving off the hill. It follows the layers of sand, of limestone in this case, and where the water comes at the edge of the hill where this breaks angle, the water is coming out at that level. So it's very wet right along there. And that combination of the limestone, look at the hawk, red-tailed hawk. Nobody saw that because you're looking at me. So you should be looking around.
Knock it off.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, he was released early. He wasn't supposed to be. But we'll work with the crew.
Great.
So this limestone and the water is ideal for a different kind of forest. This would normally have been oak hickory, but it works for walnut. So all of the natural walnut we want to include in this walnut project. The field, this was an agricultural field, and that had grown up to a number of walnuts like this, but mostly it grew up to honeysuckle, autumn olive, and that kind of invasives. So we started with the field here. We wanted to expand the natural walnut coming down the hill. We did that by first going through and cutting out poor quality walnuts, cutting them off at the ground. Sprouts encourage very rapid growth and very good quality, so you can replace a poor walnut tree with a good sprout and get a walnut tree quickly. So that was one part of the project. Another part of the project, after the bulldozing of the invasives, another part of the project was to plant 1,000 walnut seedlings. Now, two things have happened with the planting of the walnut seedlings. Most of them are very successful, which means they lived. And those that lived are sprouting. Some of them will not be very good quality. So we'll treat them the same way. After 5 or 6 years to go through, if it's not a good one, boom, you're gone. They're very harsh around here. You have one chance. That's it. All right. So as the walnuts are growing up, there's root pieces and so on that were from broken walnuts that were bulldozed. And they are numerous in this planting. So we expect within 10 years we will see this area will be all walnut all the way down to the road here. And so it's kind of taking advantage of a natural situation. This is pretty exciting to me. I have been doing this for 54 years, and I have never seen a situation like this.
That makes you about 80-something, 90.
Yeah. You want me to tell you what it makes you?
That's why I shut up at that point.
No. No. So it's just an exciting where you always want to read your forest for what it will give you, and then participate in it. That's what's exciting. I think we're on a wrong track where we always have to make a forest different from what it is in order to consider it successful. I don't agree with that. So you're not going to hear that from me. But yes.
Have you run into any problem with walnut canker disease?
Walnut canker disease, it's very common. Walnut canker disease is if the tree particularly is not vigorous, it becomes very susceptible to the disease. So much of the trees that we took out in our initial removal of the natural seedlings were cankered. But there really isn't much evidence of that anywhere now. But part of the problem with black walnut is we almost always plant it on an off-site that is not supportive of walnut. So we shouldn't be too surprised when we see cankers control that stand. And when you're managing your forest, there's no substitute for healthy trees. You do what you can to make the forest healthy. And the emphasis is the forest healthy, not trees healthy. It's not exactly the same thing. And there's a whole lot of the forest that we ignore because it doesn't have commercial value. But we do not include it when we consider its healthy contributions to the whole forest. So, okay, any questions about walnut?
Two quick questions. Do deer browse on walnut, black walnut is one?
They will, and then they're shot. Yeah.
They keep coming though.
You keep shooting.
No, deer will browse on walnuts, and usually when the deer browse on anything and they don't completely consume it, there will be sprouting from the defense system in that seedling. Okay? We have meristematic points. When my children were small, I'm surprised they allowed them to get bigger, but when they were small, they used to listen to my lectures, and they would compete to see how long it would take before I said meristematic point. But part of the defense system of a tree is to have these meristematic points. They're special cells that have no particular purpose unless the tree is compromised. So the top of the tree is eaten by the deer. Meristematic points develop branches, and there will be now a fork. Okay, now they've ruined the quality of the tree without further input, but they haven't killed it. So what will happen, those trees that are browsed, the walnuts that are browsed here, within 5 years as we're walking through, we can pick those trees, identify those trees that were browsed, and make a decision. Do we cut off the fork? Do we cut it off at the base? But we still have options. And so browsing is not a consideration, a big negative here. We're not concerned too much about that.
The second question, Bruce.
Yeah.
Why did you select bulldozing as opposed to other methods of land clearing and control of invasives? And as I look at this autumn olive, how successful was that?
That one wasn't bulldozed, obviously, but yeah, you couldn't walk through this.
So,
I mean, these were house size.
so bigger than a brush hog.
Oh no, you couldn't do it with a brush hog. Right, you could have sprayed it, but then you still couldn't walk through it. So we were preparing it for planting. So the bulldozing was the best option, and we will follow up every few years. We can go through with a backpack sprayer and zap. There's nothing out here anywhere that is perfect. I mean, you're constantly committed to following through with a project, and but it's surprising that we have gained. You're looking at 2 years since this was cleared, and we could still walk through and spray easily to control that. So you just try to make it better. You're growing walnuts, so you're focusing as you walk through on the walnuts, and you do what you have to do to keep them vigorous.
Not the initial clearing in the beginning, but afterwards, the undesirable walnuts that you cut off at the base. What month would you say is the best to do that?
My mother taught me you do it when you can.
That's number one.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah. There's a perfect time to do everything, according to Ecclesiastes, but I don't know about you, but I've never been in any situation where the best time was then. So you do it when you can, and ideally, when you want to answer your question properly, you want the most energy in the root system, and so cutting in the wintertime would be good. But honestly, if you only have time to do it in July, you're going to do it in July, and it will still work. Yeah.
How important are mycorrhizal fungi to walnuts?
Walnut tends to be early in succession, and early succession trees they're not obligatory to mycorrhizae, but they will benefit from it. So we feel that as we go up this trail, you will see just a few big walnut trees, and they are absolutely benefiting from the mycorrhizae. And as mycorrhizae is fungus, soil fungus, many different species of fungus, and that fungus is in the soil. When the walnut root is just beginning to develop in the spring, that new growth of the root is non-woody. That non-woody root comes in contact with the soil fungus mycorrhizae, and it forms a it comes in contact with the soil fungus and forms a structure on the root that is a mycorrhizae. That's the mycorrhizae. The mycorrhizae is not really fungus and it's not really root. It's a structure combining the two. And mycorrhizae make it possible for roots to absorb elements. Certain mycorrhizae will take in iron or copper or manganese or whatever. Other mycorrhizae take in water, but they make it possible for the tree to thrive. And the natural forest situation, when we have an abandoned field of agricultural field, used to see it would come into ash seedlings first. Ash, all of the olive family, and ash is in the olive family, all of the olive family are not obligatory to mycorrhizae.